Hello, this is S.K. Williams, and I would like to present you my first of 3 reviews of Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, which, I regret to inform you, is my last film in the Star Wars series that I will go into, considering myself a fan of Star Wars. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, and I realize that a lot of people are, especially fresh off of a movie, and that over time my feelings for this film may soften. But from where I sit right now, it was just terrible. The film was awful. That's also why I'm doing 3 reviews, though. I understand that how I'm feeling now may not be how I feel about it in a few days, and I am actually going to be watching it 2 more times. That may sound hypocritical for a movie that I don't like, but it's Christmas season, and I have a friend that wants to go and see it with me, and I also have family that wants to make a holiday event out of going to see it, and I really can't get out of either engagement. I'm not going to see this movie 3 times in theaters because I love it. In fact, I would rather never see this film again, but I will because of the situation. Besides, spending time with family and friends is worth the torture of any movie. Movies are not real in the end, so we can set them aside. With that said, I will begin my review. Keep in mind, this is my initial reaction, and it's only going to be reflective of my initial feelings of the film. This video is also going to be spoiler-free, although I watched it later than a lot of people and made this video later than a lot of people, so to be perfectly honest, I don't really think spoiler-free is necessary, because even if you didn't want it spoiled, it probably is for you already if you haven't seen it. But for the sake of covering all bases, I will not go into detail, and I will not cover the spoilers. I will only tell you my general overview of this film in a few minutes, and in a few days, after I've seen it a second time on Tuesday, I will tell you my reflections upon it again, only in greater detail, and about a month later, sometime in January, I will present my final thoughts. So, here goes. Ever since Disney bought Lucasfilm back in, I believe, 2012 or 2013, I have had a very bad feeling about it. And with the release of The Force Awakens, I was one of the earliest people that I knew of that simply didn't like it. I wasn't making videos back then, so I can't back that claim up. And I should clarify that I didn't hate The Force Awakens. I actually did enjoy it for what it was, but I didn't like the direction that Disney was taking Star Wars, and the usual criticisms you've already heard a million times were my own criticisms. Rehashed storyline, boring characters, Rey as a Mary Sue, the usual. And even before this movie came out, I already knew Disney was planning to release each of the movies with a different director and writer, which means it wasn't going to be driven by a clear vision and have a clear voice. Rather, it's basically a loose confederation in which, while the directors don't just do whatever they want and there is some cooperation, the directors have a great deal of say in the specific movies they're working on. And as a result, Rian Johnson did give me some hope that perhaps the issues I had with the writing of The Force Awakens would be in some ways ameliorated. And instead, Rian Johnson gave us a movie that was worse than The Force Awakens. Almost like Rian Johnson hated The Force Awakens and wanted to destroy everything that it had built up. I mean, literally, all of the plot threads that were in The Force Awakens were unceremoniously dropped, and they were done so in a manner that was very unsatisfying. Let's start at the beginning. The film has a brilliant opening sequence in which a space battle is occurring. It has some logical problems to it, but if you're caught up in the thrill of the moment, they wouldn't be as noticeable. And it is a good way of getting the adrenaline running for a rousing good time. And after that, it cuts to the island on Aku, where Rey is handing off Luke's lightsaber. And that is the first major problem. I know I said this would be a spoiler-free review, but I'm going to spoil this one small thing, for the sake of comparison. Luke takes the lightsaber, and after 2 years of waiting to see what he would do, he tosses it aside. He wants nothing to do with the events of the galaxy. Luke Skywalker in this film has been reduced to a coward. A broken old man who's given up hope and who wants to die and take the Jedi Order with him. And Luke has to beg for training. And that is basically the entire movie. There's more plot, of course. The actual storyline consists of the First Order being able to track ships through hyperspace now, and the Resistance running away from them. And this film does take the Resistance and finally call them rebels. But the actual plot is not that interesting. And it also has a much talked about casino subplot, which I agree with wasn't the best in the world. But ultimately, the problem that I had with this movie had nothing to do with the casino scenes. Whether or not you liked them, they were disposable. The problems I had with this film were that Luke Skywalker did not act like Luke Skywalker. Rey continues to basically be a Mary Sue character, even though some are saying she's not. And it didn't go anywhere. This movie was more like it was interested in contradicting what people thought would happen and building twist after twist after twist, that it never constructed a real narrative. There is no reason for you to care about any of these characters or what happens to them. The story is pointless, and it goes out of its way to tell you that everything that happened in The Force Awakens, as well as everything that happened in Star Wars up to this point, was meaningless. It's just awful. And that's sort of the problem that I have with this film. I don't know if I can discuss it and my feelings without spoilers, but I'm trying. But suffice to say, Snoke was not important. Rey is important, but who she is not important. Luke Skywalker is a worthless failure and a coward, and at the end of the day, this is the beginning of the rebellion, rather than what had happened 30 years ago. In fact, nothing that you thought was important from the last films mattered. All the plot threads that were started were simply severed. The most banal and simplistic answers were given to dismiss any concern. And at the end, everything that made Star Wars was undermined. And I mean that literally. Rian Johnson literally has Luke Skywalker speaking lines to that effect. That everything that the Jedi believed in is wrong, and that everything that Star Wars is based on has been wrong, and here's this new vision. Frankly, that is the biggest problem I have with this film, but again, I'm trying not to go into spoilers. And I've decided that in my second video, I'll give another spoiler-free review, combined with a spoiler review. I'll just try and time it out, and I may cut it into 2 different videos just to make sure, which means I'll have 4 with apologies. And I'm sorry that this is a bit rambling. I just saw the film, and I'm trying to process what I saw, and I'm quite angry at it, to be honest with you. This film was terrible. This film was awful. This film made me hate Star Wars, and I grew up on Star Wars. This film does not deserve any consideration. And while I will go see episode 9, I'm only doing so because I am a completist who wants to know how the story ends. I am no longer interested in how episode 9 plays out. I don't care anymore. And as for Star Wars spin-off films, if one looks interesting, I might go see it. But I'm not interested in Star Wars overall anymore. Perhaps the old expanded universe, but it will never be added to, at least not until Star Wars becomes public domain, or if Disney just decides to. But in the foreseeable future, it won't be. And frankly, I'm sorry for this rambling review. I'll do a better one later. Both a non-spoiler review and a spoiler review, whether it's one video or two, or perhaps 3 with one video that I cut into 2 so you can watch it. I don't know. The point being made is, yeah, I did not like The Last Jedi. And this is a rambling post. I'm tired, and I just didn't like it. I'm going to let this video end now. I probably embarrassed myself with how poorly this was constructed. I will do a better job next time. Thank you. God bless. May the Force be with you. And goodbye.